Welcome into Boxing Scene Today. There's nothing like a comeback in boxing. It's what we love. It's the Rocky story. The idea that Tszyu trying to accomplish that December 17th against Anthony Velasquez, having lost 3 out of his last 4 fights, including a vicious knockout loss to Sebastian Fundora. Can he get Paulie's way of thinking back in the room? We'll find out. Tell me, break it down. Jim Smith alongside Paulie Malignaggi in studio. Chris Algieri joining us via Zoom, doing movie star stuff. Paulie, let's start right there with that. Tszyu trying to kind of get, as you put it, back in the room amongst the elite, taking on an 18-0-1 guy who has the numbers, not tested at this level in any way. Is this the get-back kind of fight? We see what Tszyu's got less. He's done this before.
Well, on paper, it's got to look respectable to a degree. You can't bring Tim all the way back to no man's land with the kind of opponent. So this is, sort of a step in the right direction. And from there, you got to see the development. There's a lot of questions to be asked about Tszyu at this point. And I think that it was probably certain choices that you look back in hindsight could have maybe been made differently. Maybe the Fundora replacement of Thurman was crazy. Credit to him for just saying yes because he's a ballsy kid. But you got to look at the way certain choices in his career, and I think now it's more important than ever to make the correct choices as far as the matchmaking and the way you're going to bring him back the right way, because Tim was a pretty good fighter, man. There was a lot of potential there, but he was star power, a good fighter, had world-class talent, but I think was sort of run through the gamut in that way, So I think now he's not at an age where he's a spring chicken anymore. You got one chance to make it right for him and put him back in a position where he can be at or near the top or be in the mix again, be in the room as we were talking about. And this is the first step, and I think it's a correct step because again, you can't go too far back. You still gotta keep it respectable. He's still a known entity, so you can't just go all the way back because then people are gonna say, oh, he really is shot. He's fighting guys who have completely no hope. So you got to put him in with a calculated risk, and this is the solid calculated risk.
After the Bakhram Murtazaliev loss, Chris, he took on a guy named Joseph Spencer. Similar record. I think it was 19-0 at the time. How similar is that to this kind of fight?
I would assume it's very similar. I know that the people around him know what they're doing. And in terms of, this comeback fight, the only reason that he has to fight someone respectable, like you said, Champ, is because of his name. Because he could easily go off TV, get a couple wins with completely nondescript guys that really no one ever gets to see or whatever. But it's Tszyu, and that speaks to the star power that he has and the reason that we're talking about him right now. Listen, anyone else would have got written off already. He had 2 really bad stoppage losses. One of them was an absolute destruction by Murtazaliev, where he got concussed and didn't even realize what had happened. And then with the Fundora fight, his will was broken, and he stayed in his corner between rounds. So anyone else, we don't hear about this guy ever again. But it's Tszyu, and he does have the star power. He does have that potential that you were talking about, Champ. And I agree with you. I looked at him as a really, really good-looking prospect, soon-to-be contender, and future world champion, and probably multiple division world champion. And it's been real tough to see, the route that he's been taken. But man, that's boxing. And like you said, Champ, the decisions that are made leading up to where we are today for Tszyu, you got to look back on those and be like, man, there was some crossroads where we just went the wrong way. And in terms of where he's at in his career, he's on the edge of a cliff. He takes another bad loss. He takes any kind of loss. He's over the cliff, and we're never going to see him again. Credit to him for trying to rebuild and get back. I believe he's changed his team. I heard reports that he may be training with Pedro Diaz. Very, very different than what he's probably used to. Listen, I saw a lot of potential in him. Can he get back to that? I'm really not sure. And I hate to say that because I really liked him. But it's a long road back. And, this fight is just going to be one more step, one foot in front of the other, getting away from that cliff.
And it's a tough weight class, too.
What I'm curious about, it's very, very tough. But if you look at this Anthony Velasquez fight, Paulie, as an outsider, a win isn't good enough. What do you want to see to let him, once again, back in the room in a very tough division? He can't just win. He's got to be dominant. Yeah.
Well, a win is expected, but then you almost go in not sure if he can dominate. That's one of the question marks. So a win is expected. You'd like to see him dominate if there's an intent to keep moving forward, which I'm sure his team has. But as far as his fan base is concerned, they're also going to be curious. We as critics, as analysts, are also going to be curious because you're anticipating he's got to win. But yeah, you say, okay, he's got to look spectacular. But this is not a prospect who's trying to work his way to a title fight. This is a guy who's trying to rebuild. So the expectation of looking spectacular, I don't know if it's an expectation or if it's more so, can he look spectacular? What are we going to see? Is he going to struggle? Like, you're not dealing with a prospect who's on the verge of a title shot and he's got to keep looking spectacular. You're not dealing with, say, I don't know, Abdullah Mason going into the Noakes fight this weekend. You're looking more at, again, exactly what it is, a rebuilding. So there's more question marks where if he looks spectacular, he can be back. But can he look spectacular? That's more so where we're at here.
Now, and when you look at, of course, this fight and what Tszyu has been through, Chris, you touched on it. Not only a very tough loss to Murtaza Aliyev, knocked out in round 3. Then you look at the Fundora fight that ended in round 7, stayed on his stool. This idea that when do you start physically worrying about a guy? A crossroads to me personally as an analyst and as a former fighter myself is when I start hoping you don't get hurt more than I hope I see you look good. That's a line I don't want to go over again. This idea that you as an analyst from the outside, 2 bad losses, when do you start worrying about a guy?
Listen, to be honest, I've given up on that. Where I am in my career as an analyst and watching fighters fight, at the end of the day, it's up to the fighter and the people close to them. I'm not close to these fighters. I don't care. I don't care which fighter it is. Yeah, I care about the health and safety of everyone, but it's not up to me to whether I decide or feel like this guy should fight or not. That's up to him and the people around him. I'm sure they have a lot more input than any of us would ever have. So I try and separate that from my analytical eye. This fighter's going to go out there. They're going to do what they're going to do. You're a master of your own fate. If you decide you're good enough and healthy enough to fight, and the doctors decide that as well, and your family's okay with it, I'm not speaking on that. But in terms of where he's at, I think he's still young enough. Yeah, he took some bad losses. But in terms of where he's at in his career at this point, I don't think he's taken a bunch of really bad batterings. I think more than anything, it's not physical, it's psychological at this point. If he can get over that PTSD from getting beat by Murtaza Aliyev in a way that he didn't even know what happened. I remember after the fight being like, oh, I don't even know what happened in that fight. And then also getting broken, his will broken in the Fundora fight. Well, I saw that fight live. He went for it that round right before he got stopped, right before he stayed in his corner. He went for it with everything he had. It wasn't enough, and he realized that. That can hurt you more than even a Murtaza Aliyev fight, just getting caught or getting beat up. But it's going to come down to his psyche and his psychology moving forward. Listen, I've had some bad losses. I had some embarrassing losses too, but I always came back mentally and psychologically that I could still do it. That's going to be on him to do that, and that's a hard road. Speaking from someone who's done it, Champ, I'm sure you can speak to it as well. But in terms of him physically, I think he's young enough, strong enough, fit enough, and his career hasn't been that long and damaging. So I don't really worry about that stuff. But also at the same time, like I said at the start of this, it's not my place to worry about the health and safety. I care about people for sure, but at the end of the day, that's up to them and the people that are around them.
When you look at a weight class in which there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, we saw, of course, Virgil Ortiz demolishing Erickson Lubin, getting in the ring with Boots Ennis. Paulie, talk about being in the room. This is a tough room. This idea that, yeah, okay, he might win this comeback fight, however you want to label it, there's nowhere to go that isn't a murderer's row at 154.
Yeah.
So he's not the goods. We're going to know.
Yeah, and it's going to, that's why you return, you got to return a little bit gingerly, but you can't return that gingerly because he's not this spring chicken either. You can't take your total sweet time.
31 years old,
you do have to be patient though. He's got time. You do have to be patient in some ways, way, shape, or form. And honestly, with this weight class, you may have to be a little more patient than you would want to be. You let's see how he looks with Velasquez. Again, it's not. Again, like you said, it's not just the win; it's how he wins. But I don't think you're expecting as much as you're wondering. But at the same time, just getting the win has to start there. Just getting the win. Then, if you can look really good getting the win, it's okay. It's more confidence building. If you look average getting the win, okay, let's check another type, Velasquez type, and see where we're at. I don't think you can rush this. The mistake was made in just taking Fundora. And this is why fighters don't take these tough fights. You see what I'm saying? You see how this guy got written off so fast? And when you wonder why you complain about, the fight boxing doesn't make fights. You wrote this guy completely off already. And he did what you expect your favorite fighter to do because you say, losses don't matter. Well, you know what? He took the Fundora fight instead of the Thurman fight because losses don't matter, right? And then he came back with Murtaza Aliyev, dude. Murtaza Aliyev. Which, first of all, you're not even supposed to get a title fight coming off a loss, but that rule it's there just in writing. It doesn't actually exist. So he gets the title fight with Murtaza Aliyev. gets mowed through. Again, that really the smartest thing to do, was going through a monster like Matazaliev, who nobody else wants to deal with, but you're going to go after him after a tough loss with Fundora. That this is why now you got to play it the correct way. This is why fighters sometimes edge on the side of safety, which we hate to see when they overdo it. But there's a balanced way you got to play it. I think Tszyu has proven himself. I think Tszyu has earned the right to play it on the side of safety at this point.
Will this be, Chris, to wrap this one up, will this be an edge of the seat first 4 rounds kind of fight to see if he has that mental will, see if he's willing to step through punches, see if he's willing to, as you said against Fundora, put everything into winning? Is the first 4 rounds crucial in this fight?
Absolutely. I mean, and it's kind of the way it was with the Joey Spencer fight. Like, what were we going to see? Were we going to see a hesitant Tim Tszyu? We didn't that night. And I've said this time and time again about him, from being able to interview him, talking to him one-on-one. I think psychologically he's got the right head on. His mindset, the way he answers the questions. He speaks the way I want a champion to speak. He speaks the way that I want fighters to speak. I think the kid is truly a warrior deep down in his blood, in his DNA. Obviously, his father being close to Tszyu. I think he has that. I don't think he's faking that. So I don't expect there to be a lot of signs in this fight. I think they picked this guy for a reason. He's going to go out there, get the win, look good doing it, and then we're going to be talking about Tim Tszyu and some big fights down the road. And like the champ said, maybe not right away. Maybe it might take a little bit of time, a little bit of a rebuilding process. But the way that these people seem to want to move around Tim, because he does have star power, it's probably going to move a little faster than most. But I'm here for it. I like Tim Tszyu. I like his style. I think he still has a lot to offer. But he's got to get a win here in this fight, and he's got to do it looking good.
That's right. Tim Tszyu looking for the comeback. How he looks may define his future and the future of the 154-pound division. Well, as it makes news, it's coming up December 17th. As it gets closer, as it makes more news, you'll see it right here on Boxing Scene Today. Join us. Find out while millions are watching.
It's a crazy boxing weekend.
Isn't it? It's nuts. I love it.
17th, 19th, 20th.
Yeah.